What's up, guys? Welcome back to another weekly recap of the League of Legends. Gare Bear here with Tibbs, coming off a ridiculously stupid Week 12 matchup. We'll talk about that later. I got some interesting stuff to get into, but not a lot of time, so we're going to go ahead and walk through the things that we had to discuss. So first thing we're going to do today, some new stuff. We're going to do a fantasy MVP. Clayton and I kind of split it up 6-6, and we just picked fantasy MVPs for each team. Obviously probably not somebody that you traded for, but somebody that's on your team or has been on your team for majority of the season. Next week we'll do a losers episode, so we'll kind of talk about maybe people that were drafted too high or people that got hurt, shit like that. And then maybe last week we'll do a sleeper. Submit one of those to us if you'd like to. Looking to get some of you guys on the pod next week to kind of talk about some other stuff, some playoff previews and all that kind of stuff. So without further ado, welcome to the Week 13 preview for League of Legends. So Clayton, if you want, we'll just kind of alternate. I'll go first. We obviously do our own first. For me, it's CD Lamb. For my team, I think CD is a guy. He didn't really have that hot of a start, much like Dak Prescott, honestly, which is why you dropped him. I just traded for him. Some of the best quarterbacks in the league going that way. So, he's a dude, like, he's definitely affected by quarterback play. But he would still put up, 17-ish early on when Dak was not having good games. So I would say it's got to be CeeDee Lamb for me. Then if you want to talk about yours, you can.
Yeah, I mean, mine's a pretty easy pick. I got CMC as my RB1, so I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer on my end. He's your first-round pick. He's the best running back in fantasy. It's kind of a no-brainer pick, but it's still ridiculous what he does. I mean, he still puts up like over 20 points a game. He had like 16 games in a row with a touchdown. So like, it's still pretty crazy what he does. I mean, you kind of take him for granted sometimes. Like, oh, it's just Christian McCaffrey, but without Christian McCaffrey, people would be struggling in a lot of leagues. So, it's pretty crazy what he does either way.
So consistent, man. So consistent. PPR monster. Which is funny because CMC was your first pick. CD was not my first pick. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Something we might talk
Yeah,
about.
that is interesting. Yeah.
Moving on to Bryce. So for me, I'm just going to go ahead and say ETN's Bryce's MVP. Nobody expected him to have like 8 games in a row with 2 tutties. Kind of stupid, but kind of inflated also. At the same time, you just got to ride that high, man. I think on the same breath, Bryce also went through like a 4 or 5 game win streak when ETN was going off like that. So, for me, it's ETN.
Yeah, especially when a guy's like a big reason you're winning. If he's performing good during your, like winning streak, that's kind of a clear MVP. So that's an easy choice there. Yeah.
Yeah.
My guy. So Wiley's up next. He's got a pretty stacked team, honestly. Like it was kind of a tough choice between. It was a really tough choice between Keenan Allen and CJ Stroud in my mind, just because CJ Stroud has been on a crazy run and he was such a value pick. Like getting him, he got him in like probably like the 8th round, I would imagine. He got him in.
I think
he got him off the waiver wire. So didn't even draft him. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, got off the waiver wire. But it's Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, he's the number 2 wide receiver. He's he's had like a bunch of touchdowns so far. Say a 0 on the year. That's not right. Oh, there it is. It's rushing touchdowns. He's had 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 touchdowns in the year. He's your first round pick. Your number 1, clear number 1 with Mike Williams going down in Los Angeles. So he just absorbs all those targets that he lost. And it was a tough pick between Keenan and CJ, but yeah, Keenan's a clear cut number 1 there. So
it's interesting because Keenan's like he was one of those guys that was like a your wide receiver 2 option. It seemed like during the draft. Like I remember staying away from him and being like, he's been hurt so often. I mean, I took him in the first round one year towards ACL, But anyway, from North Carolina too, so that's interesting. Next guy for me, Hartzell. So Hartzell's a tough one. Me and Clayton discussed this a little bit beforehand. I'm thinking maybe Kelsey is the guy I want to say, but he's still the number 2 tight end on the year. He's not the guy, that's been blowing it up. And I think part of that's the Mahomes thing. But, also, I mean, it could be Kenneth Walker. He's had a couple games where it's been big. And unless you have a guy like CMC, it's hard to, get that 30-point spot from the running back position. And Walker's one of those guys who can do it. So I would still say Kelsey. If Walker hadn't got hurt, maybe. But Kelsey's my guy for real, for Hartzell.
Yeah, I think Kelsey's the MVP there. I mean, with the team, like you got guys like who, let me see here. Yeah, I think uh yeah, Kelsey over Walker for sure. PJ or Walker's been a little bit banged up, and with Zach Charbonnet, I think the hype people want him to come in. I think a little bit, and so I think people are excited about Charbonnet, and they're kind of putting Walker on the back burner a little bit. So next we got Crater. Crater's team is was tough to me because I like Adam Thielen a lot for his MVP. I think Adam Thielen was an unknown kind of in Carolina coming into the season. He's come from Minnesota, kind of like unknown, kind of getting old, and he blew up the first like 6 weeks of the year. Had a bunch of touchdowns. Bryce Young's number one guy, but Justin Herbert is still the number four fantasy quarterback. He's just been super consistent. I think he's had over 20 points. It looks like, except two games this year. So I mean, like that's pretty. Can't ask for much more of your MVP than that. So I think it's pretty awesome what he's done this year for sure.
To put that in perspective, Mahomes has had 3 games over 20 points this year. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's fantastic. So last guy for me, or second to last guy, is Diggs on Grayson's team here. I think Diggs is the MVP, clear cut. He's got a couple guys though. Lamar's up there. Lamar's a guy I stay away from in drafts just because the injury thing. He runs a lot, and if Mandrews isn't there, like it's not the same team usually. So I mean, what are you seeing? Mandrews isn't there. Zay Flowers is getting hyper targeted.
hmm
But I think it could be Diggs. I think he's got a couple sleeper picks on there, but it's mostly Diggs for me.
yeah. I think I would agree with that for sure. Yeah, G Scott up next. His is a pretty easy one. He's got Josh Allen on his team. He's the number one fantasy quarterback. I had some thought about um, Saquon just because he has been good the games he's been in, but he's just been out, and he has had a few duds. So Josh Allen's pretty obvious pick there, I think.
Yeah. I think it's definitely Allen. I've tried to get him from G Scott all year. He won't give them to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for Weaves, I think it's been Dak Prescott, which is crazy to say because Weaves has Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua, and AJ Brown on the same team, and
hmm
none of those guys have been the MVP. For a while, it was AJ Brown. I mean, but
Yeah.
like still, he wasn't. He was putting up 150 yards. He had that crazy streak. Go Eagles. But I mean, at the end of the day, like Dak is winning him games. Dak has been the one winning him games, putting up 30 points for the past. I think it's past 4 weeks. He's had 30 plus points or
hmm
something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's Dak Prescott.
Yeah. When the Cowboys are blowing people out of the water, he's putting up 300 yards. Like he might be the real life MVP. Honestly, I mean, it's kind of we'll see how the Cowboys do. And I mean, I guess versus Jalen probably not, but he's playing well. Greco's team. Looking at Greco's team, there's not a lot of great players to pick and choose from on his team, unfortunately. I mean, Tua's pretty good. Devontae Adams had some good games, but just a lot of disappointing, unfortunately. And he's had some trades, so his roster's not 100% organic. But I think Kittle honestly has been his MVP. He's just been super consistent. He hasn't had a lot of the dry spells that some of those other guys have. He hasn't been his biggest performer on the year necessarily, but I think just for the consistency and the set it, forget it. You don't have to worry about, is Tua going to be good this week? He's got a bad matchup. Whatever. Tua is pretty lock up proof too, but I think Kittle's been the most consistent guy for him for
Yeah,
sure.
especially where he was drafted in tight end position. I mean, there were guys saying like, you would rather have who was it, Ingram than Kittle this year and stuff like that. I remember.
That's crazy.
I know. But anyway, yeah. So that's our MVPs. We'll move on to the losers next week. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So standings refresh. We got Tibbs standalone 9-3 right now after that win last week, tied for second place. I want you guys to see how close this is, though. First is Tibbs. Second is me, Wiley Grayson. Third is Weebs, Crater, Hartzell. So between first, second, and third place, we have 7 teams. A lot's going to shake out over these next 2 weeks, especially because of the games that are being played. G. Scott and Panko are at 5 and 7 in fourth place. Fisher and Bryce at 4 and 8 in fifth place, and then Greco by himself at 3 and 9 at the bottom. But Fish is tanking hard, so we'll see who does the punishment. But anyway, so that's a preview of the standings, or just a little recap. The trade deadline is this week, so boys, if you got trades, send them over. I'm the first one to accept them.
I think I think it's
But
tomorrow. So
tomorrow?
do we have time to accept tomorrow? I think it's over probably tomorrow. I think it might be over now, essentially.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, maybe
Well,
it's
I
over
don't know. I
now.
mean, get it in if we're sending this out tonight, get it in tonight.
Yeah, send me your offers ASAP.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you're watching this and you haven't sent me an offer, it's probably too late. Anyway, we had two trades go through last week. Tivis sent Debo and Jonnu Smith for David Njoku, which was a great pick. The 49ers are difficult to have. I think, I think it helped and served both teams well. I think Njoku fills a void for you. You've been trying to fill all season with Mandrews and Waller. But Debo is one of those guys that I think, unfortunately, is a boomer bust guy this year. Especially with the injury and stuff. But anyway, I think that's a good trade both ways.
Yeah, I feel like I needed to consolidate at receiver. I had a lot of good options. I know I think Debo is at the bottom of my list. He's still a good wide receiver too, and I needed to fill that void with Andrews, obviously. So, and Njoku, I think with 10 and 12 targets in games, if you have over 10 targets in a game, like that's not usually like an accident. It's usually by design. They're probably gonna keep doing that. So I'm hopeful that pans out. I hope we'll see.
Yeah, and much like you did, I tried to consolidate quarterbacks this week and trade up to somebody who had a megastar quarterback, which I did. I sent Kyler Murray and Brock Purdy, and also Jake Ferguson for Dak Prescott and Sam Laporta. Service level might seem a little weird, but when you dig into it, the guy I sent him to has McBride as his tight end. So Kyler and McBride both have week 13 buys this week.
Mm.
So picking up Ferguson, I think he'll be a top 10 tight end easily rest of season. But I really wanted that Dak CD stack. And you hear Andy Holloway talk about on the fantasy footballers. I want some of that action, dude, because I'm not getting it right now. And just like last week, we'll go ahead and scoot into the 12 recap. Clayton and G-Bell, man, first place. What a game. I mean, it's what you ask for when you play fantasy football. It's heartbreaking losses, right? Lose by 1 point, with a 17% chance to win. Whatever, though. DJ Moore, last reception of the night. I didn't even watch the game. Take me through your emotional mindset.
So I didn't watch the whole game. I came into the night down by 22, I guess, a little over, I guess 21 technically.
21.68.
Yeah, and didn't decide. I was hanging out with my girlfriend. Didn't watch the game. Set the phone down. Wasn't even checking fantasy. Was like, I'm gonna lose. DJ Moore's not gonna come through for me. I was kicking myself for not starting DJ Moore or Debo Samuel over whoever Tank or DK. But regardless, wasn't paying attention to it. Left her place. Turned the game on in the car, and I realized he had like 13 points out of 22 he needed. I was like, dang, 10 minutes, 1/4 left. We'll see what happens. Get home, turn it on the last 2 minutes, and they're driving and down 1 point. I come in, they're down 1 point, and Justin Fields running the ball, finally fires a stripe down the middle to the field. And it's so zoomed in, you don't know who it's going to. Then it zooms out, and it's DJ Moore in the middle of the field, 35 yards down the field. And I was like, holy shit, yeah, it was DJ Moore. And so checked my app immediately, and I was like, that's it. I just won. And I wasn't gonna say it was crazy. I was like, holy shit. I've never had that lucky of a break in fantasy, honestly. Never.
I appreciate you having the stones to not say anything to me about that, dude, because that's one of those that's exciting, but you just know what I'm feeling on the other end, and it's good that that's the second Monday Night Football loss this fucking year, man. I'm up big. I have two of the biggest performances. Not only that, I had Mostert on my team for his 49-point game. Kyron Williams a 38-pointer, and I lost both of them on Monday Night Football to Devontae Adams and DJ Moore. I'm done. I don't bitch about it anymore.
38 points from Kyron. That's crazy.
38 points from Kyron Williams, and I lost.
Yeah, I'll be lying. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a message typed up in the group me, but I deleted it. I was like, no, I'm not gonna be that guy. I'm gonna delete it. And do it. So you're welcome.
Well, that's how you play, man. Honestly, I hope all the playoff games are like that. That's two good teams like losing by less than a point, man. You can't really get mad about it. And there's more fun to be had over the next 2 weeks because I have two matchups left this year after obviously week 12. I've got Pinko this week, and then I got Clayton again in the last week. So, a lot of things could happen here. No one's clinched first place yet. No one's clinched a bye. Clayton and I have both clinched the playoffs, though, so that's great. First time, I think, in a couple years. So anyway, moving on. So Clayton has Weebs and then me again over the next 2 weeks. Also coming up, or I guess last week we had Wiley and Weebs, which was a huge game. Wiley put up 180 to go to 8-4 for a three-way tie at second place with me and Grayson. Just really came out there and flexed on everybody. CJ had a great game. Bryce and Crater are his remaining two schedules, so I think those guys are lower than 500. He should waltz right into the playoffs. He might win the next two games and then, just soar right up to maybe first place. We don't know. Weebs has fallen to 6-6, and one thing I'd like to say is that if you're at 6-6, like you're in third place. So Weebs is in third place with Crater and Hartzell. There's a lot that can happen here. Greco and Grayson, they played. Greco lost to Grayson and fell to 3-9. He's pretty much in last place right now by himself at 3-9. He has Crater and Panko coming up. That'll kind of be, and again, like Crater is sitting at third place. Greco's at sixth place. Like they're not that far apart. I think Greco is eliminated from playoff contention, but either way, he's still got a chance to fight out of last place. I don't think we ever decided.
No, I think we're just going to redo last year's punishment. But I was at this afternoon, and Greco, Fisher, and Bryce are all right there, a game ahead of Greco. They're both two tied for one game ahead of Greco. So if those two guys both lose out and Fisher or Greco wins out, that's a last place change right there. Or, there's a lot of different combinations of win-loss that can happen for different things to shake out between those three guys. So it's definitely not over. You can say the same thing for the top half, but,
There's a lot to go down here, but there is a path for the 4 and 8 fifth place guys to move into the playoffs, which I don't – here's the thing, man. We can lose any week. Like my team is great. This is one of the best teams I've had in a long time, mostly because of injuries. Your team has been affected by injuries, and you're in first place still. But we can lose to anybody at any time. Like, every team in this league has a chance to put up 180 at any point. Crater and Panko played last week. That was the battle of two losing streaks. Panko finally, Panko got off a losing streak there and went to fifth place, 5-7. He's got me this week, and then Greco in the last week. Crater is down to 6-6 again. In third place. Not that big, or not that hard to get to the playoffs from third place. Greco and Wiley coming up last 2 weeks for him. Fisher and G Scott played. The thing about Fisher and G Scott's bet is that I said in the last episode, whoever won that game, I think would be more likely to make a playoff push. And I think I was right. I think G Scott is going to take a little push here towards the end. He's got a good team.
And also, if you look at the rankings now, or you look at the records now, he's now 2 games ahead of Greco, and Fisher and Greco are 1 game separated. So that 1 week alone has put G Scott almost into contention, and essentially Fisher battling for last place. Essentially, that's really crazy. That it gets really in the weeds at the end like this. A lot of implications in 1 week.
I know, and I think it is just because we've had such a carousel of teams this year. Like, there's no overtly great or horrible team, Anyway, the last 2 games we had, Bryce and Hartzell played. Hartzell won. He put down his biggest point total since week 7 to go to 6-6, and again, he's tied for third place right now. He's another guy that's got a great team on paper. Bryce falls to 4 and 8, but again, could win the last 2 games, and something crazy will shake out, man. I'm just excited to see how it all does shake out. Speaking of week 13, we've got week 13 buys this week. 6 teams. I think we had – how many bye weeks did we have this year with multiple teams like this?
Was like 6. I think this is like the second at least was 6, and most of them have had 4, at least 3 or 4.
I think there was one with 4 or 5 maybe, but is this normal? This doesn't seem normal to me.
I don't think so. It seems, last week, no bye weeks is weird. Why would they have no bye weeks and a bunch of bye weeks? And so I think it's probably some new thing that NFL is trying out, and it's going to fail miserably as usual. So we'll see what happens.
Well, so Ravens, Bills, Bears, Giants, Vikings, Raiders on bye. Ravens and Bills, the biggest ones there for sure, but there's some stars on these other teams as well. Vikings also, let's move on down here to Clayton and Weebs' matchup this week. So, lucky for you, Jettas is coming back. He's returning off IR this week, but he is on bye. So you won't have them at all. We got Clayton at 9-3 taking on Weebs at 6-6. The line is Weebs plus 37.2. He doesn't have his two quarterbacks in, so that'll probably change when they go in. But yeah, I would love to see you lose miserably. I would love to see you get beat by 200. How do you feel though?
I mean, I would love to not lose by 200. And I mean, once he gets his quarterbacks, he's getting what? He's getting Purdy in, Murray in. So I mean, you average that out at close to 20 each. I mean, it's going to be like a 1 point line at that point. So I mean, it's going to be a tight game. All these weeks and matchups are tight. From here on out. I'm not as afraid of Cooper Kupp as I would have been at the beginning of the year. But like you said, any one of us can put up 180 at any week. And I'm looking forward to trying out Jade Reed. I've watched him on the bench last week. I picked him up after he scored 19, so I'm gonna have to play him down a couple of receivers, down DJ Moore. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know.
Loving the Packers receivers. They got a young group of receivers that are pretty good. You got Dobbs, Watson, Reed, and then there's some other guys too. But Jordan Love has been efficient, man. Another reason I can't believe Bryce's team has not won more games is that Jordan Love in there, who seems like he either throws 3 touchdowns and no interceptions and gets 24 points, or he has 7 points. And he doesn't really make any like he makes a couple great throws a game. I feel like and drops it in a bucket like outside the 20 or something like that. Bryce is taking on Wiley this week. 8-4 Wiley versus 4-8 Bryce. Line is Bryce plus 16.2. Bryce had been on a 3-game win streak, as we mentioned. He's got Hawkinson, Jacobs, and the Buffalo DST on buys this week, which are huge. That's a big deal. I mean, Hawkinson, I think, is number 1 tight end right now, and then I think Jacobs is Jacobs is a top 10 running back easy. Who just actually torched the Chiefs last week. They got a great defense. So
yeah, it's a lot to miss, especially in Hawkinson. It's hard to replace tight ends like that on the week, but when you have a running back room like Bryce does, it's going to be a little bit not as hard on that. You just slide, you take out whoever this number 1 guy was, Jacobs, and put in Brian Robinson. It's not a bad replacement there. So
can I just say this is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun to like look at these matchups and then like potentially like I'm sitting here looking at Bryce's team and it's like he's got Jordan Love, who could, like we just talked about, man. I mean, he could throw 26 points up any day, and like he could beat Wiley this week, and that would be huge. That would be huge for him. He would go to 5-8, and then just need to win one more, and like he could probably make playoffs.
Once he sticks a tight end in there in the defense, he'll probably be close to close to Wiley's line. I mean, he has to replace his defense too, but it's not going to be. Right. It's probably going to be a 10-point line at most.
One more thing about Wiley's team. Wiley does so. He had Jonathan Taylor. He was a second half sleeper for a lot of fantasy analysts. But I don't know if you saw the news today with the thumb injury thing. He's going to be out for like 2 or 3 weeks. Which for Wiley is not that big of a problem because he's just going to throw Jalen Waddle in his flex, which is a stupid flex. But anyway, question out of this game: would you rather have Pollard or Eckler rest of season?
I think I'd have to look at looking at schedules. I would say Pollard, just because of I think the role the Cowboys have been on, and I think it's not going to get worse. I think it's going to get better, and I think Pollard's going to get more involved. If you look at the touchdown disbursement or whatever they called the whole touchdown math, he's had so few in the beginning of the season, it's probably going to even out towards the end of the season. So I would rather have Pollard. I think Eckler's just been, I don't know. I've heard a lot of bad things about him. I heard he looks slow, heard he doesn't look fast, heard he, just looks not the same. So man. I'd rather have Pollard. Yeah.
They're saying he looks hurt. He's had 7 the past 2 weeks, which is crazy with Mike Williams out. And the Chargers losing, like they're not feeding him. So there's something going on. The backup running back, who's the freaking dude, the backup running back for the Chargers? I don't even remember his name, but dude, I've picked him up for so many years, hoping that he would be a viable, like plug and play guy for Eckler. He never is.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, we'll look at mine and Panko's matchup real quick. So I play Panko. Line is Panko plus 23.8. Only buy on the whole teams is Khalil Herbert. So I don't know if he was starting him anyway. I think they were running Roshan a little bit more last night. Panko is coming off of his highest point total of the season, though.
Yeah.
That scares the piss out of me. That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
bro. Like, I go from being tied for first to, like, I could lose. Like, I lost last week. I probably lose to Panko this week, and I could lose to you again. And I just lost 2 last week, next week, and then that puts me at freaking what 8 and 7. You
6.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And
Like
7.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. If I were to, or 8 and 6, you're right. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
I mean, his
excited
team.
to watch that. Sorry, what were you saying?
Now I'm gonna say his team is definitely stacked. I mean, Pacheco's kind of coming on back from his early season, heat check. Trevor Lawrence is getting back into his kind of groove from last year he was in. So I mean, if people pick up at the right time, if they get hot at the right time, then that's really all that matters. It's all timing in fantasy. It's not really matter. It doesn't matter how good your team was all year. You know what I mean? That really doesn't matter at all. Like it just matters what you do the last 6 weeks of the year. Really, it's really what
Yeah,
matters.
no. I was talking to a guy today at work, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, I don't think I'm going to make the playoffs." And he was like 8-5 or something. I was like, "Dude, I won a championship at 8-5 like a couple years
Mhm.
ago. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not anybody that exactly what you're saying, dude. And that's why I hate fantasy football because
Mhm.
you'll come in here not having that first round bye is humongous.
Yeah.
Because that's where it happens, dude. So many teams lose on that first round. Good teams
Yeah.
to teams that get
I'm
hot.
sure that there's tons of 14-1 teams that lose in the first round. Yeah, there's
Oh,
tons of or the second round, I guess. Or the second round, I guess. But yeah,
anyway,
it's still crazy.
Bijan Robinson looking good. Looks like Arthur Smith's starting to feed him a little bit. Finally becoming the guy you drafted him to be. I've got him in another ESPN league, and I'm ecstatic to have him. Panko offered me a trade for him earlier in the season, or actually a couple of weeks ago, and
Mm,
I maybe should have taken it. I don't know. Kyron Williams,
mm.
big story for me, coming off injury with a 38-point game. Humongous. Love that. Want to see that the rest of the season. All up in your face. Moving on to Crater and Greco. Crater at 6-6. Man, he is on a 4-game losing streak. I got to say, started out 6-2, and then dropped 4 in a row.
Jeez.
That's a crazy thing. A lot of it correlates with Joe Burrow and Derrick Henry. Greco at 3-9. Again, the line is Greco plus 15.8. Both these teams are on losing streaks now. Crater basically needs to win to keep his playoff hopes alive. But again, he's at 6-6. So, like if he loses this week and next week, something could shake out where he still kind of makes the playoffs somehow. Not in the
Yeah.
worst position to be in. You're right at the 500 mark.
Yeah.
Only 500 teams make playoffs.
Yeah.
I think I lost
Yeah.
you.
I mean, all you can do is set your lineup and hope you win, and then hope everybody else that you need to lose loses. Oh, you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little bit lagged. I think. I don't know.
That's okay.
Um,
Greco's
but
got Fields, Gus, and Zay Flowers on bye this week. Crater has Gabe Davis and Donta Foreman. Um, I don't know what's going to happen here. I would like we'll see how this one shakes out. But if I had to bet, I would say I'm going to put money on Greco. You want to do a little water bet here?
a little water bet.
A little water bet.
Yeah, I'll take Crater if you want to take Greco. Sure,
All
yeah.
right, that's a bet. I'll do let's say Greco wins. You give me $20. Deal. 20
Sure,
bucks.
deal.
Deal. All right, next matchup we've got Garrett Scott taking on Extreme Heart. Garrett Scott 5-7, Extreme Heart at 6-6. Line is G Scott plus 20.2. Allen, Kincaid, and Barkley all on buys for G Scott. My God, dude. He's still got a squad that could come out here and ball out all over Hartzell, but he's still Hartzell's got Cook, Addison, and OBJ not playing this week. Like I said last
Mhm.
week,
And Olave.
Olave's on a bye this week too.
Well, he's probably going to be out. He looks like he
Yeah.
might be out this week.
Yeah,
So I
true.
mean, he's going to be down another receiver there. That's just another blow to the Nats, dude. That's rough.
Mhm. Well, the other thing too is Olave had a great game last week.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of debate on whether Carr or Winston was going to affect his play. The whole Carr Olave connection thing has not been there all season, but he hyper targeted him. It's what the guys talk about on professional football, or professional fantasy football analysts and stuff. Hyper target the guys that are superstars, and you'll win games. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Olave getting a lot of targets. I think that's been the story with Hartzell's team this year. Garrett Wilson, he's got a bunch of guys that he drafted at a certain ADP that haven't met that. Olave
Mm-hmm.
and Wilson are the two biggest of those that I think about. Ken Walker's kind of outperformed his ADP. That was one of the reasons why I picked him as maybe thought of him as more of an MVP. And Kelsey's just a safe pick, like he's going to get you 30 every now and again, but he's not sexy, man. Like I don't want to pick a tight end number one.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and a guy like Calvin Ridley too. I mean, he's so hot and cold, and Trevor Lawrence hasn't been all that good either. And so like it's been a rough go for the receivers in general there. Yeah, Garrett Wilson's really disappointing in some ways, in a lot of ways.
It's good to see Devontae Smith and Ramondre heating up for Garrett. Those are two guys I think you're kind of seeing a correlation too with Dallas Goedert being out. He's going to try to play this week, which I think is stupid, but whatever. And Ramondre, like I said, the Patriots suck, which is great to say. I'd love to say that. They are horrible. Worst team in the league.
They're terrible.
Ramondre
anytime I want to stream a defense, I look for who's playing New England, and I literally draft that. I pick that defense up. Like, that works no matter who it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what happens here. This is another one of those. It's like it's more middle of the pack matchup. It's 5-7 versus 6-6. So big implications. Like G Scott has a chance to catch Hartzell here. And then the last one we'll look at Grayson and Fish, 8-4, 4-8. Line is Cobb plus 13.9. He's got Diggs, Lamar, and Bass on bye this week. So look for maybe an upset here, man. I mean, this is
maybe an upset.
I would call this the almost upset of the week, maybe.
It's not a lot of playoff implications per se, and like right next to each other. But I mean, if Grayson loses, that's another spot somebody can overtake him with. So I mean, there is still some implications, even though the records are so different.
Oh, dude, I'm fighting just as hard at 8-4 as I am at 4-8.
Exactly, yeah.
By and all of that. He does need a big game from Goff, which I think he'll get. I think Goff has heard everybody kind of bashing his name a little bit, saying, where's Jared Goff of last year in the dome with 300 yards every game? I think he might come out here and ball. Singletary too. That's another one. There's a couple guys super high on him. He's kind of taking over the backfield in Houston, and they're just scoring so many points, man. It's like you just want a piece of the offense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Fisher's team. I mean, if you can get a week out of Christian Kirk like he had earlier in the year, I mean, scoring a couple touchdowns, getting 14 targets, 12 targets like he did early in the year, there's no reason to say that he can't take advantage of this bye-ridden week for Grayson and go ahead and capitalize.
No, I mean, he's got an Achane. Achane might come back this week. I don't think Achane's going to play much. If he re-aggravated the MCL, dude, like there's no way as a coaching staff that just got hammered last year and basically created the concussion protocol off of Tua. I don't think they're going to just knowingly send one of the most explosive players statistically this year. I don't think they're going to just serve him up on a hot platter to the defense.
They're not going to march him out. They're not going to march him out at 50%. No, that won't happen. No.
But most every week he's an every week play. I kind of regret trading him earlier in the year to Weebs, but it is what it is, man. You just kind of ride it out. Looking for Brees to have a second half surge. Tim Boyle, yeah, great.
Hopefully, dude. Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right, well that's all. I mean, that's all we got for today. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back next week. We might try to get one of you guys on the pod, talk about some fantasy losers, some previews and stuff like that. I would like to throw a poll in there maybe in the group message to ask, who would be interested in, kind of listening to these podcasts or things outside of the season, like during the playoffs, just highlighting that kind of stuff or just talking about football in general. It's a good way for us to hang out and talk and communicate and all that kind of stuff and argue about shit. So.
Yeah. It beats a phone call, dude. If you can sit around and see each other's faces, it's a little bit more like you're actually seeing each other. It's definitely
cooler. And guns and Tannerite and everything. Yeah,
exactly, dude, exactly. Yeah, you get a little background, you get a little bit of character in your Zoom call. It's nice.
Yeah. All right, so water bet made this week. I got 20 on Greco. Right? Is that right?
Yeah, you have Greco. I have who? I have Grayson. Not Grayson. I forgot who he's playing. I already forgot about I'm bad. I'm a terrible gambler.
Yeah, I know. We're playing fantasy football, dude, and we suck at it. So Gary Bear, $20 on.
It was Crater and Greco.
Yeah. I have 20 on Greco, right? Yeah, because Crater's got those dudes on bye. Rock and roll. All right, guys. Well, yeah, we'll see you next week.
You guys.